December 11th, 1998. 250 miles above Earth, astronauts Jerry Ross and James Newman float in the cargo bay of the Space Shuttle Endeavour. They're installing thermal blankets on the newly assembled International Space Station. Routine work. Careful work, Dot, and then something goes wrong. A thermal cover slips from Ross's grasp. It drifts away, tumbling slowly against the black of space and the curve of the planet below. The crew photographs it. A dark, angular object, rotating, catching sunlight in strange ways. Within weeks, these images will spread across the internet, and they will reignite one of the most persistent space mysteries of the modern age, because to thousands of people around the world, that floating object isn't a lost piece of equipment. It's proof of something that's been watching us for 13,000 years. They call it the Black Knight satellite, an alien probe, a technological relic from before human civilization, a silent observer circling our planet since the end of the last ice age. Is it real? Is it myth? Or is it something in between? This is the story of how a legend was born. How disparate mysteries spanning a century became woven into a single narrative. How facts and fiction blurred until the truth became almost impossible to see. This is the Black Knight conspiracy. Unveiled. But to understand what happened in 1998, we need to go back. Much further back, to a time before satellites, before space flight, before anyone even imagined that objects could orbit the Earth. We need to go back to 1899, to a laboratory in Colorado Springs, to a summer night when a man listening to the stars heard something impossible. Nikola Tesla sits alone in his experimental station, surrounded by coils and wires and equipment of his own invention. It's late. The mountain air is cool. Through the windows, stars blaze in the clear Colorado sky. Tesla is conducting experiments in wireless transmission, radio waves, electromagnetic signals. He believes these waves could carry messages across vast distances, perhaps even to other worlds. He adjusts his equipment, listens through headphones to the crackle and hiss of atmospheric noise, the random chaos of nature's radio signals, and then he hears it. A pattern, rhythmic, repeating. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Not random, not natural. Deliberate. Tesla's mind races. He knows he's detected something unprecedented. A signal unlike anything he's heard before. Regular, intelligent, coming from somewhere beyond Earth. Later, he will write about this moment. He will describe the feeling is growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. He believes in that moment that he has intercepted a communication between worlds, perhaps from Mars, perhaps from somewhere even more distant. The scientific community will largely dismiss his claims. They will suggest he heard lightning or some other atmospheric phenomenon. In later years, scientists will propose he may have detected natural radio emissions from Jupiter, or cosmic sources like pulsars, which wouldn't be discovered for decades, but Tesla believed. And his belief, his certainty that he had heard something from beyond Earth, planted a seed that would grow into something much larger. The first whisper of the Black Knight. 20-9 years later, 1928. Norway. An engineer named Jürgen Hals is conducting radio experiments. He sends a signal, a simple transmission into space. And then he waits. Radio signals travel at the speed of light. If they bounce off the ionosphere and return to Earth, the delay should be a fraction of a second. Predictable, consistent, but what Halls hears is impossible. His signal returns, but not immediately. Seconds later, 3 seconds, 8 seconds, 15 seconds. Far longer than any natural echo should take. He repeats the experiment. The same thing happens. Long delayed echoes, LDEs, a phenomenon that shouldn't exist. Other researchers confirm it. The signals are real. The delays are measurable, but no one can explain them. Some scientists suggest the signals are bouncing off distant objects in space. Others propose ionospheric anomalies, unusual atmospheric conditions, but no explanation fully satisfies. The phenomenon remains a mystery, and to some a darker possibility emerges. What if something is out there, something in orbit around Earth, something intercepting human radio signals and sending them back, a repeater, a satellite, a probe? But in 1928, the idea of an artificial satellite is pure science fiction. No human technology can achieve orbit. The very concept seems impossible, yet the signals continue. The echoes return, and the mystery deepens. Fast forward to the 1950s. The dawn of the space age is approaching, but it hasn't arrived yet. No satellite has ever been launched by any nation. And then, in 1954, a retired U.S. Air Force major named Donald Kehoe makes a startling claim in newspaper interviews. The Air Force, he says, has detected 2 satellites orbiting Earth. Unknown satellites. Not American. Not Soviet. Not from any nation on Earth. At the time. This is astonishing. Sputnik won't launch for another 3 years. No country has the technology to put anything into orbit. Yet Kehoe claims objects are already there. The story spreads. Aviation Week magazine reports on unidentified objects in polar orbits. Weight and trajectory beyond known capabilities. Was it real? Was it misidentification of something else? Was it simply Cold War paranoia creating ghosts in the data? The Air Force never officially confirmed Kehoe's claims. Some historians suggest the reports were tongue-in-cheek, aviation industry rumors that got out of hand. But the seed planted by Tesla, fertilized by the long-delayed echoes, has now taken root. The idea that something unknown is circling our planet, something watching, something waiting. February 1960, the height of the Cold War. Tensions between the United States and Soviet Union are at a breaking point. Time magazine reports a disturbing discovery. The U.S. Navy has detected a dark, tumbling object in polar orbit, an orbit no known satellite should occupy. Weight estimates suggest something far heavier than anything either superpower has successfully launched. Is it Soviet? A secret weapon? A spy satellite? Or is it something else entirely? The Pentagon investigates. Tracking stations around the world focus on the object. Calculations are made. Observations recorded. And then an answer. The object is identified as debris from Discoverer 8, an American reconnaissance satellite that failed to achieve proper orbit. The explanation makes sense. Discoverer 8 had indeed malfunctioned. Parts of it remained in orbit, tumbling and dark, but there's a problem. The Discoverer program is classified. The public doesn't know it exists. Corona, the secret spy satellite program, won't be declassified for decades. So in 1960, the official explanation sounds like a cover-up, a convenient story to hide something more troubling, and for those already suspicious, for those who remember Tesla's signals and the long-delayed echoes and Kehoe's claims, this is confirmation. Something is up there, and the government doesn't want us to know about it. The legend is growing, but it still doesn't have a name. That comes later, and from an unexpected source. Between 1958 and 1965, the British military operates a rocket program. They call it Black Knight, a series of test vehicles designed to study re-entry and atmospheric conditions. The Black Knight rockets never put satellites into orbit. They're suborbital test vehicles, but the name enters the aerospace lexicon. It appears in news reports and technical publications. Around the same time, science fiction writers began exploring the idea of ancient alien probes. In 1972, Soviet author Alexander Kazantsev publishes a novel about an extraterrestrial satellite called The Black Prince. When translated and discussed in Western circles, the names begin to blur. Black Knight, Black Prince, an unknown dark satellite. By the 1970s, the various mysteries have merged in the public imagination. Tesla's signals, the long-delayed echoes, the 1950s satellite sightings, the 1960 dark object, all of it becomes part of a single narrative. A mysterious satellite that predates human space technology. A watcher in the sky. And it needs a name. Something evocative. Something that captures the mystery and menace. Black Knight. Astronaut Gordon Cooper orbits Earth aboard Faith 7, the final Mercury mission. According to later accounts, Cooper reports seeing a glowing green object ahead of his capsule. Multiple tracking stations allegedly confirm the sighting. A UFO, possibly the mysterious satellite itself. The story spreads through UFO literature. Books and articles cite it as evidence. Government proof of unknown objects in orbit. There's only one problem. It never happened. Cooper's official mission transcripts contain no such report. NASA records show no confirmation from tracking stations, and Cooper himself in later interviews denied the incident. The story appears to be a complete fabrication, created by UFO researchers and repeated so often it became accepted as fact. But by the time the truth emerges, the story has already entered the Black Knight mythology. Another piece of the puzzle. Another layer of mystery. And then, in 1973, something extraordinary happens. Something that will transform the Black Knight from a collection of odd incidents into a coherent conspiracy theory. Scottish science writer named Duncan Lunan decides to revisit the long-delayed echo data from the 1920s. He's fascinated by the phenomenon. Convinced there's a pattern everyone else has missed, he plots the delay times on a graph, not chronologically, but spatially, creating a map from the numbers. And to his astonishment, a pattern emerges. The delays, when plotted correctly, seem to form a star chart, a map of the constellation Botes, specifically the star Epsilon Botis. Lunan goes further. He interprets the pattern as a message, a greeting from an ancient alien probe positioned near the moon. According to his analysis, the message reads, Our home is Epsilon Botis, which is a double star. We live on the sixth planet of 7. Our probe has been orbiting your world for 13,000 years. 13,000 years, since the end of the last ice age. Since before agriculture, before writing, before recorded history. An alien sentinel, watching humanity evolve from hunter-gatherers to spacefaring civilization. The theory is spectacular. It's compelling. It ties together all the previous mysteries into a single, coherent narrative. Tesla heard the probe's signals. The 1920s echoes were its transmissions. The 1950s and 60s sightings were glimpses of the ancient satellite itself. Everything makes sense. The puzzle is solved. The Black Knight is real, and it's been here for 13 millennia. Lunan publishes his findings. The media picks up the story. For a brief moment, the world considers the possibility that we've been watched all along, and then Lunan retracts it. He admits his analysis was flawed. The pattern he saw was likely coincidental, a product of how he chose to plot the data. The message he interpreted was probably wishful thinking, human pattern recognition, finding meaning in randomness. He withdraws his claims, acknowledges his mistakes, but it's too late. The idea has already spread. The theory of a 13,000-year-old alien probe has captured the public imagination, and even though Lunan himself no longer believes it, the legend of the Black Knight satellite as an ancient extraterrestrial watcher has become permanent. December 1998. We return to where we began, Space Shuttle Endeavour. Mission STS-88, the first assembly mission to the International Space Station. Astronauts Jerry Ross and James Newman are outside, attaching thermal blankets to the new structure. Routine work on a mission that's anything but routine. They're building humanity's permanent home, and space. Ross is maneuvering a large thermal insulation blanket, a trunnion pin cover designed to protect part of the station from temperature extremes, and then it slips. The blanket detaches from his grip. In the zero gravity of orbit, the object doesn't fall. It drifts, slowly tumbling away from the shuttle, caught in the dance of orbital mechanics. The crew watches it go. They photograph it, a dark, irregular shape against Earth's blue curve. Mission Control is notified. One of the thermal covers has gotten loose, the commander reports. It's logged as debris, catalogued by NASA as Object 025570. Tracking stations note its position and trajectory. Within weeks, atmospheric drag will pull it down. It will burn up on re-entry. A brief meteor, and then nothing but the photographs remain. And when they're released to the public, they cause a sensation, because the object in the photos looks strange. Not like a piece of fabric or insulation. It looks solid, mechanical, almost craft-like. It's dark and angular. In some images, it catches sunlight, creating highlights that suggest structure. In others, it's a black silhouette against the void. To a generation raised on science fiction and UFO lore, these images look like something else entirely, not a lost blanket. A satellite, ancient, alien, the Black Knight. The timing is perfect. The internet is growing. Forums and websites dedicated to UFOs and conspiracies are proliferating. Image sharing is becoming easy. The STS-88 photos spread rapidly. They're shared, analyzed, enhanced. Every detail scrutinized. People point out the irregular shape, the way it seems to change appearance between photos, the fact that it was photographed during humanity's first ISS mission, as if the ancient probe was observing this milestone. NASA's explanation is immediate and straightforward. It's a thermal blanket, lost during a spacewalk, catalogued as debris. Nothing mysterious. Former NASA engineer James Oberg investigates thoroughly. He reviews the mission audio, studies the photographs, examines the blanket specifications. His conclusion is definitive. The object is exactly what NASA says it is: a trunnion pin thermal cover. The irregular shape and changing appearance are consistent with a flexible blanket tumbling in orbit, with one reflective side and one dark side catching light at different angles. The mystery is solved. The evidence is clear, but the explanation doesn't matter, because by the time the facts are established, the legend has already won. The STS-88 photographs become the definitive proof of the Black Knight satellite. They're cited in documentaries, books, websites. They're presented as government evidence of alien presence. No amount of debunking can overcome the power of those images. A dark object in space, photographed by astronauts. From a mission to build the International Space Station. For believers, it's confirmation. The Black Knight is real, and we have pictures. So what is the Black Knight satellite? After all these years, all these incidents, all these claims, the answer depends on who you ask. To skeptics, it's obvious. The Black Knight is a modern myth. A collection of unrelated incidents, misidentifications, and hoaxes woven together into a coherent narrative. Tesla heard natural radio emissions, possibly from cosmic sources. The long-delayed echoes remain unexplained, but were likely atmospheric anomalies. The 1950s satellite claims were Cold War paranoia or misidentified debris. The 1960 dark object was Discoverer 8. The Gordon Cooper story was fabricated. Lunin's 13,000-year theory was retracted, and the 1998 photos show a thermal blanket. Nothing connects these events except the human tendency to find patterns, to create stories from fragments, to believe we're being watched. As Martina Redpath of Arma Planetarium put it, the Black Knight is a jumble of completely unrelated stories stirred together into myth. But to believers, the pattern is the proof. These incidents, spread across a century, all point to the same conclusion. Something has been in orbit around Earth for thousands of years. Something monitoring our development. Something waiting. They point to the consistency of the claims. Different people, different decades, all describing similar phenomena. How could that be coincidence? They note the government's quick dismissals, the convenient explanations, the classified programs that weren't revealed for decades. What else might still be hidden? They ask, if it's just myth, why does it persist? Why do new incidents keep getting added to the timeline? Why do people keep seeing things in orbit that don't quite make sense? And they believe, not because the evidence is conclusive, but because the alternative, a universe where we're alone and unwatched, is less appealing than the mystery. The Black Knight legend taps into something primal, the hope that we're not alone, the fascination with ancient mysteries, the thrill of believing We've uncovered a secret the authorities don't want us to know. It offers a narrative that's more exciting than mundane reality. An ancient alien probe, silently observing humanity for 13,000 years, is far more compelling than a lost thermal blanket. And in an age of internet connectivity and image sharing, the legend has only grown stronger. New generations discover the story. New claims and evidence emerge. In recent years, additional theories have proliferated. Some suggest the Black Knight is a Bracewell probe, a hypothetical autonomous alien spacecraft designed to make contact with emerging civilizations. Others claim its technology from an ancient human civilization, perhaps Atlantis, that achieved space capability before being destroyed. Still others weave it into broader conspiracy theories involving government cover-ups, secret space programs, and hidden contact with extraterrestrials. In 2015, a video circulated claiming to show the Black Knight being shot down by unknown forces. The footage was quickly identified as a Russian rocket stage re-entering the atmosphere, but not before it had been viewed millions of times. Each new claim, each new image, each new interpretation adds another layer to the mythology. The Black Knight has become self-sustaining, a legend that feeds on itself and grows stronger with each telling. So where does that leave us? Standing in the present, looking back at a century of mysteries and claims, what can we conclude? The factual answer is clear. There is no ancient alien satellite orbiting Earth. The incidents that created the legend have prosaic explanations. Tesla heard natural phenomena. The echoes were atmospheric. The sightings were misidentifications or fabrications. The photos show lost equipment, but the cultural answer is more complex. Because whether or not the Black Knight is real, the legend itself is very real. It exists in the collective imagination. It shapes how people think about space, about aliens, about government secrecy. And in that sense, the Black Knight is more than just a conspiracy theory. It's a modern myth, a story that reveals what we want to believe, what we hope is true, what we fear might be hidden from us. It's a story about humanity's place in the universe, about whether we're alone or observed, about whether our world holds secrets we haven't yet discovered. And it's a reminder that in the space between what we know and what we imagine, legends are born. The Black Knight satellite may not exist, but the questions it represents are real. The human desire to find meaning, to discover we're not alone, to believe in something greater than ourselves. These are timeless impulses, and they will continue to create new mysteries, new legends, new stories we tell ourselves about the universe and our place in it. Perhaps that's the real lesson of the Black Knight. Not whether it's real or fake, but what it reveals about us, about our need for mystery, our willingness to believe, our eternal hope that the universe holds wonders we haven't yet imagined. As we continue to explore space, as our technology advances, as we send our own satellites and probes to distant worlds, we carry these questions with us. Are we alone? Are we being watched? What secrets might the cosmos still hold? The Black Knight satellite, real or imagined, is our way of asking these questions, our way of reaching out to the unknown and hoping something reaches back. And in the end, whether the Black Knight exists matters less than what it represents, a symbol of our eternal curiosity, our refusal to accept that all mysteries have been solved, our belief that somewhere out there, in the dark between the stars, something extraordinary might be waiting. 13,000 years, since the Ice Age, since humanity was young, since we first looked up at the night sky and wondered, if the legend is true, something has been watching all that time, observing our evolution, witnessing our triumphs and failures, waiting for the moment we're ready to know we're not alone. If the legend is false, we've created it ourselves. A story born from misunderstanding and hope, given life by our imagination and sustained by our desire for the universe to be more than it appears. Either way, the Black Night endures. In stories and photographs, in documentaries and internet forums, in the minds of everyone who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered what might be looking back, the truth, as always, is out there, perhaps in orbit around our planet, perhaps only in our collective imagination, perhaps somewhere in between, in the space where fact and myth blur together into legend. The Black Knight Satellite, Ancient Watcher, Alien Probe, Modern Myth, Government Secret, Lost Thermal Blanket Dot, all of these. None of these. The mystery that refuses to die dot, and maybe that's exactly as it should be. Because a universe without mysteries, without questions, without the possibility that something unknown is watching from the darkness, is a universe far less interesting than the one we hope to inhabit dot, so look up tonight. At the stars, at the satellites crossing the sky, at the vast darkness between, and wonder, just for a moment, if something up there is looking back 13,000 years, or 13 days, ancient or modern, real or imagined, the Black Knight Satellite remains what it's always been, a mystery, a legend, a question waiting for an answer that may never come. And in that uncertainty, in that space between knowing and believing, the legend lives on dot, forever circling, forever watching, forever just beyond our ability to prove or disprove the Black Knight. Our oldest satellite, our greatest mystery, our most enduring myth dot, this is the conspiracy, unveiled. But the truth remains in orbit, silent and dark, waiting for the day when we're finally ready to know. Asterisk, but perhaps there's one more question worth asking, one that cuts deeper than whether the Black Knight is real or fabricated. Why does it matter? In a world where we have rovers on Mars, telescopes that can see to the edge of the observable universe, and space stations where humans live for months at a time, why does a story about a mysterious satellite still captivate us? The answer may lie not in space, but in ourselves. The Black Knight legend emerged during the Cold War, when the sky above us became a new frontier of conflict and paranoia, when every unidentified object could be a threat, when both superpowers were racing to weaponize orbit and claim the ultimate high ground dot. In that context, the idea of something else up there, something neither American nor Soviet, something that predated both nations and both ideologies, was almost comforting. A reminder that human conflicts, however vast they seemed, were small against the scale of cosmic time dot. If an alien probe had been watching for 13,000 years, it had seen empires rise and fall. It had witnessed the birth and death of civilizations. It knew that whatever crisis consumed us in the moment would pass. There's a strange solace in that, the possibility of a witness. something observing humanity not with judgment, but with patience, waiting to see what we'll become. But the legend also reflects our anxieties, our fear that we're being monitored without consent, that someone or something knows our secrets, that privacy, even on a planetary scale, might be an illusion. These concerns have only intensified in the Internet age. We live in a time of unprecedented surveillance, where satellites can read license plates from orbit, where our digital lives are constantly tracked and analyzed, where the boundary between public and private has eroded almost completely. The Black Night, in this context, becomes a metaphor, an ancient form of surveillance, a watcher we can't escape because we don't even know it's there. And yet, for many believers, the Black Night isn't sinister. It's hopeful, because if an alien civilization sent a probe to monitor Earth 13,000 years ago, it means we matter. We're worth watching. We're potentially interesting enough, important enough, to warrant that kind of attention. In a universe so vast that Earth is barely a speck. The idea that someone cares about what happens here is deeply appealing. It counters the cosmic loneliness that comes with understanding how truly isolated we are in the solar system, and possibly beyond. The Black Night suggests we're not shouting into the void. Someone might be listening. Consider also the timing of when the legend fully coalesced. The late 1990s and early 2000s, when the STS-88 photos went viral, coincided with the rise of Internet culture. Forums and websites where people could share theories without gatekeepers, where evidence, real or fabricated, could spread instantaneously across the globe. The Black Night became one of the first truly Internet-native conspiracy theories. It was discussed, debated, enhanced, and mythologized by a global community operating outside traditional media structures. This democratization of information or misinformation changed how legends propagate. No longer did a story need the endorsement of newspapers or television. It just needed to be compelling enough to share. And the Black Night was certainly that. Mysterious photos from space, government denials, a narrative spanning a century, ancient aliens. It had everything. In some ways, the Black Night is a test case, a demonstration of how modern myths are created and sustained, how images can be decontextualized, how legitimate scientific phenomena can be reinterpreted through the lens of conspiracy, how the desire to believe can overcome evidence to the contrary. Understanding the Black Night. Legend helps us understand how misinformation spreads more broadly. The same patterns that created this myth cherry-picking data, connecting unrelated events, dismissing contradictory evidence, finding patterns in randomness, apply to countless other conspiracy theories, but recognizing these patterns doesn't necessarily diminish the appeal, because at its core, the Black Night isn't really about a satellite. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, about how we make sense of a complex, often frightening universe. It's about the human need for narrative, for meaning, for the possibility that mysteries still exist in a world that's been largely mapped and measured and explained. And perhaps that's the most important truth of all. In our rush to debunk or defend, to prove or disprove, we sometimes lose sight of what these legends reveal about us. The Black Night tells us that even in an age of science and skepticism, we still hunger for magic, for the unknown, for the possibility that reality is stranger and more wonderful than we've been told. It tells us that we want to believe we're part of something larger, that we're not alone in the cosmos, that our small planet, spinning through the void, might be special enough to warrant attention from civilizations vastly older and wiser than our own. And it tells us that some mysteries are more valuable unsolved, that the questions themselves, the wondering and speculating and imagining, might be more meaningful than any answer could ever be. So, perhaps the Black Knight's greatest gift isn't the truth of whether it exists. It's the reminder that mystery itself has value, that uncertainty can be beautiful, that the space between knowing and not knowing is where imagination lives. As we move forward into an era of increasing technological sophistication, as we launch more satellites and probes and telescopes, as we inch closer to becoming a truly spacefaring civilization, we'll solve many mysteries. We'll answer questions that have haunted humanity for millennia, but we'll also create new ones, new legends, new stories about what we've seen and what we think we've seen, new ways of wondering what's out there in the dark. The Black Night may fade as our knowledge expands, or it may evolve, adapting to new discoveries and new anxieties, remaining relevant in ways we can't yet predict. Either way, it's taught us something valuable, that the universe is vast enough to contain both facts and myths, that truth and legend can coexist, each enriching the other in unexpected ways. The thermal blanket that floated away from Endeavour in 1998 burned up in the atmosphere within weeks. The metal and fabric disintegrated. Nothing remains but the legend it became that endures, circling not Earth, but the collective human consciousness. A story that refuses to die because we're not ready to let it go. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real Black Knight. Not a satellite in orbit, but an idea in orbit around our minds. Ancient not because it's 13,000 years old, but because it taps into timeless human hopes and fears. A reminder that as much as we've learned, as far as we've come, we're still the same curious, pattern-seeking, storytelling creatures who first looked up at the stars and wondered, still asking the same questions, still hoping for the same answers, still believing that somewhere, somehow, something extraordinary might be waiting. The Black Knight satellite. Real or imagined. Alien probe or lost equipment. Ancient watcher or modern myth. In the end, perhaps it's all of these things, and none of them. A mystery that's more valuable for existing than for being solved. So the next time you see a satellite crossing the night sky, trailing its steady light across the stars, consider the possibility, not that it's the Black Knight, but that it represents something deeper, the human capacity for wonder, our refusal to accept a universe without magic, our eternal hope that we might not be alone. And in that moment of wonder, in that willingness to imagine, the legend of the Black Knight accomplishes what it was always meant to do. It makes us look up. It makes us question. It makes us dream. And perhaps that's the only truth that really matters.